Ike is a powerful magician, serves as a commander in the Demon Lord's army. With his skill and power, he has become an invaluable member of the demon army, but there's just one problem: he is secretly human. During a war, orc troops are able to break through the walls of a castle thanks to some well-placed explosions near the base of the wall which Ike provided them with. And all this is going on, he's watching from above along with the orc leader, who is greatly pleased with the results of his troops' invasion after following the advice of Ike. However, Ike isn't surprised by the outcome at all, since victory was all but assured once he was assigned to oversee this operation. Inside the castle grounds, the humans and demons are locked in deadly combat, but the demons are much better equipped to win with their innate strength, so the human soldiers are being slaughtered. And while all this is going on, the knight captain is up in the castle watching these men die one by one from the safety of a castle window, and probably regretting the day each chose to sign up as a knight. Just then, he realizes he's not alone in the room, so he turns around and finds that Ike somehow managed to sneak in. The knight captain knows he's pretty much food now, so he turns to face Ike and asks who he is. Ike introduces himself as the commander of the Demon Lord's 7th Undead Brigade, and he tells the knight commander he only has a few options left. His soldiers are nearly all dead, so Ike tells him he likes this territory and he wants it, so we can do this the easy way or the hard way. The choice is yours. The knight captain ain't going out like a wuss, so he tells Ike that none of those options work for him as he lunges forward for a desperate attack, but Ike wasn't surprised by this at all, since he already expected to have to do with the hard way. He quickly casts a point-blank spell, which strikes the knight captain, incapacitates him. Ike has officially won this war, but when the orc leader comes into the room to congratulate him on his victory, and while the normal thing to do for a demon commander at this point would be to execute all the surviving members of the army, but Ike has other plans, as he instructs the orc leader to provide first aid for the knight commander, as well as any humans that surrendered. Ike was being watched by a witch through a crystal ball, and she's surprised that he was able to take down Castle Arsum with just a single brigade and a week of prep time. So she's interested in the potential Ike shows. Back at the castle, Ike created a barrier around himself so he can avoid being watched further, and once he finally has some privacy, he thinks to himself that he feels guilty of hurting so many people. Even if it was necessary to win the battle, he will never truly get used to the bloodshed associated with war, because while it should be second nature to a demon, Ike is only a human in disguise. His teacher Romberg was a great mage, but he also knew a lot about the world and the advanced civilization that once lived in it. One day, Romberg found Ike as a baby and decided to take him in just for fun, and over the course of the years Ike spent with Romberg, he was taught all the magic and knowledge Romberg had at his disposal. But Romberg's last wish before he died of old age was that Ike should never tell anyone about the ancient civilization, since people would bring disaster if they knew about it. There was also one other thing Romberg had asked of him. It was for it to never let himself be seen without his robe or mask, because if he is ever found out to be human, the Demon Lord wouldn't spare him. From that day forward, Ike has never taken off his mask, and even now, he is only able to remove it because of the powerful barrier he erected around the room. With the barrier up, it prevents anyone from entering the room without his permission, but unfortunately it doesn't apply to people who are already inside the room. Ike looked down and sees the maid who had been hiding under the desk, and she begs him not to kill her, since she won't speak a word to anyone about his secret, but then she accidentally hits her head on the desk and falls over. Ike checked on her and she seems to still be alive, but he really wishes she wasn't, since he had managed to keep his identity secret for over 20 years at this point. So why does the first person to find out a secret have to be a clumsy maid? Just then the orc leader knocks at the door because he wants to talk to Ike, so he will have to deal with the maid problem later. Outside, the orc leader tells Ike that they have managed to seize the castle successfully, but he finds it strange that Ike is letting so many humans live. Ike tells him it isn't a problem, since the new Demon Lord doesn't particularly care about your kill count as long as you get the job done. The orc understands, but he and the others were hoping to slaughter all the humans and burn the village to the ground, but Ike questions what the purpose of doing that would be. Especially since if they kill everyone, then there will be no one left to pay taxes. Arsum is a trading city, so who would do all the trading if they kill all the humans? Just then Ike and the orc run into a couple of humans who wish to speak to Ike. The orc begins yelling at them for daring to speak to the great Ike directly. Ike says he's fine and asks the village chief to speak. The chief has accepted that the town is now under the control of the demon army, so he wants to know how much they are expecting to pay in taxes to the Demon Lord. Ike tells him they can just pay the normal amount they always paid, but he makes it clear that if any of them ever resist a Demon Lord for any reason, then there would be no mercy for them. Just then Ike notices something is wrong. In a moment later, he's teleported into a dark room with the giant monster standing behind him with devious intentions. Ike jumped out of the way to evade the incoming back shots, and it looks like this isn't the first time something like this has happened since Ike complained to the witch that he had asked her not to summon him out of nowhere like this. Since he is already here, Ike decides to take out the monster using his staff to cast a powerful spell, and he destroys the golem in a single hit. The witch is impressed Ike's ability since she was pretty confident in the strength of that golem, and we finally find out that her name is Sapphira. She is Ike's direct superior in the demon army and also the only demon who knows that he is actually a human. Ike asked her to please just send a message next time she wants to talk to him, but she finds it entertaining to catch him off guard with teleportation. Ike just accepts that he's going to have to keep dealing with Sapphira's BS, so he asks her if she's summoned him here because of the battle with Arsum. She tells him that's not why she called him here since her familiars couldn't have told her everything she needed to know about the battle. She's perfectly fine with how Ike took control of the city and how he chose to spare the humans, but then Ike wonders why she bothered summoning him at all. So, Sapphira informs him that Demon Lord Darokuten wishes to see him in person. Ike just shocked to hear this since he would be a 1st Brigade commander to ever be given the honor of meeting him, but Ike still wonders why Darokuten wants to see him. Sapphira assumes it must be because of Ike's impressive feat are capturing Arsum in only 1 week, so she's going to take him to the Demon Lord's castle now. Ike wasn't expecting to have to go immediately, but he puts his hand on Sapphira's shoulder and she teleports them both away. Meanwhile, back in the Arsum castle, the maid has finally regained consciousness. She gets up and tries to walk away, but as she does so, she finds that she is still trapped inside Ike's barrier. She knows there's no way she's going through a barrier like this. She looks around the room and finds a plate of food along with a note left by Ike. He wrote for her to eat the food and wait for him to return, so the maid does exactly that, and it's so delicious that she ends up pouncing on the plate. At the same time, Ike and Sapphira just arrived at the Demon Lord's castle, and the strong miasma surrounding the castle is slightly affecting Ike since he's human, but he powers through and keeps walking towards the castle. At the gate, there are guards posted, so Ike asks Sapphira if the guards check everyone who comes to the castle, and she informs him that they indeed inspect everyone who comes here. Ike is now worried since his identity will be found now as soon as the guard makes him remove his mask, but Sapphira tells him she will handle it. She uses some of her magic to surround Ike in a terrifying aura, and once he reaches the guards, they have nothing but respect for his power. They know Ike is the grandson of Romberg, and with training for such a great mage, it is no wonder to them that Ike is so powerful. Ike and Sapphira are allowed entry into the castle with no further questions, and after a while of walking, Ike asks how long it's going to take before they reach the audience room. So she tells them they are almost there, but Ike is really wishing he could fly like Sapphira in a situation like this. He's always been jealous of her flight magic, and while he can use the spell itself, he doesn't have as much control over it as she does, so the most you can do is jump really high with it. They eventually reach the audience room, so Sapphira tells Ike to wait outside a little while she talks to the Demon Lord first. Once she heads inside, Ike thinks about how the current Demon Lord Darokuten managed to turn the war around and give the demons the upper hand simply by participating in a single battle. He's the strongest demon, and rumors speak of him as a cruel and lord, so he would probably kill anyone whom he grew to dislike. On the flip side though, he is also known to be one who can recognize talent in spite of whatever weaknesses one may have. His new approach to running things revolutionized the demon army, since demons are naturally born with the instinct to fight among themselves of the slightest inconvenience. Darokuten, who accomplished all of that this time as the Demon Lord, and now Ike has to him. Ike hears Sapphira calling for him to enter, so if he walks into the throne room, and as he greets the Demon Lord, he's surprised to find that the Demon Lord is actually a girl. Darokuten praises Ike for his ability to capture Arsum in only 1 week, and he thanks her for the kind words, but he doesn't think he deserves that much credit. The Darokuten finds Ike's humility quite odd, as it reminds her of how a human would act, and Ike immediately regrets opening his mouth since he almost blew his cover just now. Luckily, Sapphira recovers for him and explains that Ike was raised by the great magician Romberg, and Romberg was known to be quite humble, so that would explain where Ike learned humility from. She also thinks that Ike might be smarter than she had initially thought, and thus chose to avoid needlessly killing the humans even after he conquered Arsum. But right now, Ike is kind of regretting the fact that he didn't kill those humans like a regular demon would, since it is drawing unwanted attention to him now. He asked for permission to speak and explains to Darokuten that he spared the humans because while they may fear terror, it won't obey it for long, so he felt it would be better to avoid killing them as much as possible, so they can keep their sense of normalcy and remain productive. Darokuten asks if that is the opinion Romberg held as well, and Ike says yes. He's only been speaking with her for a few minutes now, but he can already tell that Darokuten must have knowledge about the ancient civilizations that Romberg told Ike about, and she used that knowledge to form the demon army into what it is today. Darokuten teleports from Earthorn and lands in front of Ike, saying that he's definitely different from most demons, but the next time they meet she will like to see what his face looks like under that mask. She then teleports behind him and says she expects to see more good results for him in the future, and as soon as she's out of the room, Ike collapses out of nervousness. Sapphiro makes fun of him for being so nervous in front of Darokuten, but while he may be a strong magician he's still a wimp. What had him so nervous was the fact that Darokuten could tell that the mask wasn't his real face, but at least she doesn't know that he's a human yet. Sapphiro also mentions that he's getting a reward from Darokuten for his accomplishments, although she wouldn't exactly classify it as a reward. A while later, Ike teleports back to Arsum to check on the maid, and he sees that she's eating all the food he left for her, so he looks around and finds her sleeping behind the desk. He wakes her up, and as soon as she realizes that Ike is back, she begins begging for her life and asking Ike not to hurt her. Ike tells her to calm down since he doesn't plan on killing her, but first he wants to know what her name is. She tells her she's called 13 since slaves here are only referred to by their numbers, but her mother used to call her Sati. Ike tells Sati that he can't just let her go now that she knows he's human, but she promises that she will never speak a word about his real identity to anyone. Ike believes she will keep her mouth shut, but to make sure she doesn't let the secret slip, he tells her that she has to serve as his maid from now on. Sati is more than happy to be his maid if it means she gets to live, so it's a done deal. The next day, Ike is officially crowned ruler of a place called Avelias, and the previous day's Sapphiro had informed him that this was the reward Darokuten had prepared for him. It's a town on the front lines, for Ike's job will be to rebuild the town and bring in double its tax revenue. Ike doesn't like it, especially since Sapphiro was the one that conquered the town and she absolutely decimated all the walls, leaving it with no protection. Since they are out on the front lines, they need to have city walls ready in case the human army attacks, but when Ike asks Jerome how long it will take to rebuild, he says it will be 6 months at best. 6 months is way too much time for a city to go without a wall, but with only human laborers, there's no way they'll be able to do it any quicker than that. However, Ike believes he has a way to get it down in only 1 month, and that is to use both demon and human laborers. Jerome has never seen humans and demons working together like this, and Ike even came up with the idea to have shifts of only 8 hours. So the wall repairs can keep going 24 hours around the clock, and he also pays the laborers a decent wage to keep their morale up. So Jerome is convinced that Ike is the demon army's greatest asset and he is bound to eventually become the next demon lord. The story continues. We see the war between the humans and demons continues, and at the moment the demons have the upper hand, so Darokuten rather pleased. However, their reports show that humans are in the middle of making an alliance with the neighboring kingdom, and if they do, it may turn the tide of the war, so Darokuten decides to entrust the success of their attack to Ike. Meanwhile in the human kingdom, the knight known as White Rose Alistair has been summoned to aid the kingdom in taking back Avelias, as they can afford to lose another stronghold. Once their assignment is issued, she leaves to go fulfill it, and at the same time, Ike and Sati are both in the kingdom on a mission as well, but Sati has gotten a little distracted by a scam game. The man says all she needs to do is guess where the ball is located, and if she's right then he will double whatever amount of money she bets. Sati makes her choice, so the man asks her to place her bet, but unfortunately Sati doesn't have any money to place a bet with since Ike doesn't trust her with finances. The con artist is enraged that she wasted his time like this, but then he takes a second look at Sati and says she can pay him another way if she loses. Just then, all the cups begin floating in the air and it is revealed that the ball was never under any of them to begin with, so all the other people who lost money to the man become enraged and threaten him to get their money back. In the middle of the commotion, Ike pulled Sati away and tells her she isn't meant to leave his side as his maid, so she apologizes, but she was just so curious. Just then, she notices that Ike is in a new outfit, so Ike explains that they are on a mission to scout as the enemy, so he couldn't come here dressed in his demon disguise. When they walk through town and they see a platoon of soldiers walking through the streets, and that's all that Ike needed to see to confirm that the kingdom is indeed forming an alliance. Alliances like these have been formed 3 times in the past, and each time it resulted in the demon lord being defeated and the army being pushed back to the castle. Sati worried the demon army might be defeated again due to this alliance, but Ike expect her be hoping for the downfall of the demons, since she's pretty much a prison right now. Sati explains that since her mother was a slave in human society, she would never be treated as anything other than a slave and would probably end up like the destitute kids over there. In that case, Ike tells Sati that she doesn't need to worry since the current demon army is the strongest and wisest it has ever been, so they aren't going to lose so easily. They continue walking through the street when Ike hears someone yelling for both of them to stop, so he turns around and finds that it's the con artist who's trying to confront them. He is pissed that Ike ruined his perfectly good scam, so he brought this big guy so he could rob Ike his payback for what he did. Ike looks around and sees there are no people nearby, so he decides he'll be fine to teach the con artist a little lesson. In an instant, Ike casts a spell to freeze the big guy's legs in place and follows it up with several icicles pointed at the con artist. The con artist demands that Ike remove the ice so that he can continue robbing him, but he just stabs him in the shoulder to show that he isn't scared to hurt him if he doesn't comply. The man finally understands the situation he's in and agrees to tell Ike anything he wants to know, so Ike asked him what all the soldiers in town are for, since they all seem to be in quite a hurry. The man initially says he doesn't know anything, but Ike threatens to kill him immediately, so he coughs up some info about the Alliance, and how the Rosaria's army is eager to earn some war valor for themselves. Before the Alliance gets involved, Ike can understand why they would want to do this, since a higher kill count automatically earns you more respect at any strategy meetings held. However, if they happen to fail in their mission, it would put Rosaria in a terrible position. Ike guesses where they're going to launch their attack, so the con man tells him that there is only one location they could possibly be targeting right now, and that would be Avelia's. As far as the reports say, Avelia's currently has a huge hole in its walls, so it is guaranteed to be poorly defended. Ike now has a good grasp on the situation at hand, and since the con man gave him some useful info, he leaves him alone. However, he never said he would get rid of the ice though. Once they return to Ike's office, he sits at his desk to finish up some paperwork, and Sati brings him some tea to help relax him. Just then the demon girl bursts into the room and demands to know where Ike has been for the past few hours, since she was getting really worried about him. Ike calmly explained that he was busy scouting out the kingdom of Rosaria, but his reasonable answer doesn't make her feel better, so starts going after Sati and questions where Ike can human beside him. Sati introduces herself as Ike's maid, but the girl dismisses her and casually calls Sati an ugly beach, after which she then offers to become Ike's maid instead. Sati is pissed at this point, so she hands off Ike since he's too tired to be dealing with her right now. This begins a long argument between the two, with both of them accusing each other of trying to seduce Ike, and Ike is smart enough not to get himself involved. Meanwhile, Rosaria's soldiers has gathered outside of Avelia's and are getting ready to attack. They find it odd that there are almost no guards standing near the walls, but they assume it must just be due to their lack of manpower to effectively defend their stronghold. They soon inform Alistair that they have completed the preparations for the attack and ready to fire on her command, so Alistair gives the order to fire. However, as soon as she does, several skeleton soldiers emerge from the ground and surround Alistair's forces. The soldiers prepare to defend the siege gear, since mere skeletons should be no match for them, but all of a sudden, one of the soldiers gets shot out of nowhere, and it all goes downhill for the humans from there. Alistair sees that there's no way for them to win this battle anymore, so she orders for an immediate retreat. Ike and Jerome were watching the whole thing from the top of the wall, and they commend Alistair for making the smart decision to retreat, although the only reason they managed to win was because of Ike's reconnaissance mission earlier. However, while they were paying attention, an assassin had managed to sneak up behind Ike and fire an arrow straight into Ike's back, causing him to fall to the ground, pass out. Meanwhile, the general has just been informed that Alistair was forced to retreat from battle due to unforeseen circumstances. The soldier tries to explain that the demon army had prepared an ambush in advance of their arrival, but the general is having none of it and orders Alistair to be jailed for losing. The soldiers realizes that's a stupid move, so he tries to explain that Alistair is one of the greatest commanders in the kingdom, and he's saying he wants to throw her in jail for a single loss that will only ruin the morale of the soldiers and affect their future battles negatively, but the general doesn't care and insists that Alistair must be punished for failing the mission he sent her on. Back in Avelia's, Ike wakes up in bed after recovering from his wound, but he finds Sapphira was sleeping next to him, so he has a lot of questions to ask. First off, he wants to know why Sapphira was in bed with him, but she avoids the question and says she saved his life, but she's making the situation sound very stressed though. Eventually, Ike convinces her to be serious and tell him what happened, since he doesn't remember how he ended up like this, so she informs Ike that she healed him after you guys shot in the back with an arrow. It was a devastating injury, but thanks for healing, there shouldn't even be a scar left by now. Moving on, Sapphira mentions that the reports say not a single human was killed during the attack. She knows Ike is reversed to killing people when he doesn't need to, but he may earn the suspicion of the Demon Lord again if he keeps acting this way. Ike understands Saphiro's point, but he's trying to find a way for humans and demons to live together without meaning to fight, so needless killing would only serve to derail his plans. Sapphiro can respect Ike's dedication to finding peace between the races, so she drops the subject for now and tells Ike to stay here for now and get some rest since he's still only human after all. Once Sapphiro is gone, Ike takes a look at the arrow that was used to shoot him. According to what he's been told, he was shot from behind, meaning either someone had infiltrated the castle to get to him or was a betrayal from someone close to him. Just then Ike heard a knock at the door, so he puts his skeleton mask back on just as Sati and Lilith come in to check on him. They were both worried about Ike. They're also still arguing about which one of them gets to seduce Ike, so Lilith tells Sati to keep her distance from Ike while she snuggles up against his arm. However, Sati also wants to get close to Ike, so she and Lilith both get into another fight, but luckily, Jerome comes to the rescue and quickly grabs Lilith before throwing her out of the room and locking the door. Lilith begins banging on the door and asking to be let in, but Jerome knows that she's seriously annoying Ike, so he beats her out. Ike thanks him for his help and asks him for a favor since he wants to know where Alistair currently is. Jerome promises to look into it, so after a few hours of research, Ike is informed that Alistair has been in prison for her failure to reclaim Avelias. This was meant to be a simple covered mission to meet with Alistair, but unfortunately, Lilith followed him here and starts warning Ike that humans could be pretty violent at times, so it's not safe to come here in person. Ike thinks he will be fine since there's something he wants to ask Alistair in person, but he also doesn't recall asking Lilith to come with him. Lilith says it'll be more interesting with the two of them together, and after they're done with the mission, they can have as much fun as they want. Besides, Sati got to come with him on his last mission, so it's only fair that she gets to join him on this one. Ike doesn't want to argue about it, so he allows Lilith to tag along this time, but he needs her to keep up with him. They eventually get to the front gate of the prisons, and it doesn't look like it is particularly well guarded, so Lilith believes she could probably break her way in all by herself. Ike stops her and says he doesn't want to cause a fuss, so instead he wants them to get in and out as fast and as peacefully as possible. However, Lilith had already knocked out the guards by the time he had finished talking. They head inside, and the place is a lot bigger than Ike thought it would be, so it may take a while for him to find Alistair's cell. However, Lilith has a better idea and just beats up the prison warden to get him to give up his keys and tell her where Alistair is being kept. Alistair is apparently on the top floor, but as Ike and Lilith are about to head up, the rest of the guards show up due to all the screaming they heard from the warden earlier. Lilith tells Ike to go on ahead without her while she handles the guards, but before Ike leaves he reminds her that he doesn't want any unnecessary bloodshed. Lilith promises not to kill anyone, but as Ike is leaving he hears the guards scream in pain with several broken bones. He ignores it now and walks up the staircase until he arrives at what should be Alistair's prison cell, but he is shocked to find it completely empty. Just then, a girl sneaks up from behind and tries to stab Ike in the back, but he manages to evade her and pin the girl to the ground. He soon realizes that the girl's actually Alistair, so he gets off her and says he wants to ask a question. He wants to know if she sent an assassin to the castle to kill him during the last battle, because it wasn't Alistair then that could only mean that he has a traitor in his hands. Instead of answering right away, Alistair approaches Ike and asks if he is really a demon since he doesn't seem like one to her. Ike tries to play dumb, but as the guards begin to climb the stairs to come after him, Ike gets distracted, so Alistair seizes the opportunity to put her knife to his throat and ask him once more if he's actually human. The story continues. We see Alistair wants to know if Ike really a human or not, so even as the guards begin closing on him, she refuses to Ike move until she gets her answer. Since she doesn't want him to move, Ike says she won't move, but that doesn't stop him from casting a spell. So before Alistair realizes what's going on, Ike says English or Spanish. Everyone is really frozen in place, so Ike walks up to the guards and blows them away with wind spell. However, in the next moment, another guard sneaks behind Ike and attempts to strike him down with his mace. Ike managed to dive out of the way, and once safe, he uses gravity magic to pin the guard to the bridge grate and eventually cause him to plummet to his doom. However, before he hits the floor, Ike casts another spell to break his fall. Alistair still can't understand why Ike would go through the trouble of saving the human, but the damage to the bridge extended farther than Ike had inspected, and Alistair still can't move, so the grate beneath her eventually breaks apart and she ends up falling to her doom. However, just like the last guy Ike saved Alistair before she hits the ground, Alistair is even more confused than before since it makes no sense for a demon to save her life, but Ike ignores her and properly introduces himself this time. He says he is the commander of the 7th Army of the Demon Lord, and Alistair realizes that he must be the general that defended Avelias against her troops. Ike uses the fact that he is a demon commander as proof that he couldn't possibly be human, since the demon army would never be dumb enough to let a human become high-ranking officer in the army. Alistair now believes that Ike is a demon, so Ike repeats his question and asks Alistair if she was the one who sent an assassin, but she refuses to tell him anything regardless. She is a proud knight of the kingdom, so she would rather die than provide any information that could be useful to the enemy. Ike realizes that she isn't going to give him the answers he's looking for, so he just walks up close to Alistair and begins using mind-reading magic on her. As he is doing this, Lilith comes in to check in, and she's furious that Ike could be flirting the human woman when she's right here. She tries getting Ike to hug her instead, but he has already gotten all the info he needed from Alistair's head, so he says he will be meeting now. As he and Lilith are walking out, Alistair calls out and asks why Ike went through all the trouble of breaking into the prison if he was just going to leave peacefully, so Ike tells her that he no longer has a reason to stay since he knows Alistair had nothing to do with the assassination. And while he was reading her mind, he got to see a couple of his thoughts, so he tells Alistair that she shouldn't feel so bad about losing the battle for Avelius, since it's important for a commander like her to learn from mistake and keep moving forward. After that, he tells Lilith to get ready so they could leave, but before that, she suggests that she and Ike can go somewhere private and have a little fun fast. However, Ike shut her down and immediately opens a portal to teleport them back to the castle, and after they're gone, Alistair is left with a lot of questions about what just happened. Back at the mansion, Ike is greeted by Sati as he returns, and he tells her that he has a present for her. She's curious to see what it is, so she was over to him, and Ike was a bag of rice into her hand. Sati has never seen rice before, so she has no idea what it is, prompting Ike to tell her he found it in the capital city of Lazes, and that will help raise the productivity of Avelius. He was ordered to find a way to double the tax revenue of the town, so while as Avelius already produces a lot of wheat, if they switched over to rice cultivation, he will be able to increase the productivity of the entire town. Sati doesn't know what productivity means, so Ike takes it upon himself to explain that it means they can grow a larger amount of rice than that of wheat. This also means that they will be needing as many farmers to help with the cultivation, and that means those people will be free to do something else the time. So overall, the productivity of Avelius will slowly rise and it will eventually become rich. Ike asks if Sati understands everything you just said, but her brain is still trying to process the meaning of productivity, so Ike's economics lesson was totally wasted. He simplifies it and says it means that people get to eat lots of food and you will be able to make lots of tax money in the process. Sati finally understands Ike's point, so in order to get things rolling, he wants City to try cooking something with the rice, and she has never tried cooking rice before, so she asks Ike what she's meant to do with it. However, he has no idea either since he's never seen rice before. Sati's surprised that there are things even Ike doesn't know, but she still doesn't know what she's supposed to do with the rice. All Ike knows about it is that you're supposed to go from low to high while cooking it, so he entrusts Sati to figure out the rest of, while he had with some important business in town. A few minutes later, Ike called for Jerome and to assemble all the soldiers and his army in the courtyard, and once that is done, he starts thinking of what he knows so far. The arrow that was used in the assassination attempt belonged to Alistair's army, but he read her mind and she knew nothing about any assassination attempt, which could only mean one thing: someone attacked him and tried to make it look like it was Alistair's doing, and while he doesn't like having to suspect his soldiers, he also has to face the fact that there is likely a spy and they are among his soldiers. He proceeds to use his mind-reading magic to scan the brains of everyone that has gathered, and eventually, after going through everyone's mind, finds a goblin who was panicking and hoping he doesn't get caught. As soon as Ike's suspicion is confirmed, he teleports right in front of the goblin and accuses him of spy. A while later, Ike goes over to Sapphiro's castle to ask for some advice, but he just so happens to teleport, and while Saphiro was taking a bath, she doesn't seem to mind being naked in front of Ike that much, but Ike does mind, so he says he will wait outside. Before he steps out though, Saphiro asked him if he has a traitor in his army. This gets Ike's attention as he hasn't told anyone about the spy goblin yet, so he asks how she knew about it. Saphiro said she just made a guess, so Ike tells her the traitor behind it all was Jace, the one-eyed goblin. Saphiro wasn't surprised to hear this since she had been suspicious of Jace for a while now, so Ike asked her what she should do now. She gets home from her bath and says they are going to make Jace pay the price of betrayal. Meanwhile, back at Avelius, Jace is informed by his subordinates that Ike went to see Saphiro recently, and he doesn't understand how Ike could have recovered so quickly after they shot him through the back. But there's even more bad news for him, is there's another subordinate comes up to him that says they've lost contact with their spy in Ike's army. Jace knows this is bad news since it likely means Ike is onto his little scheme, so he decides that he will gather his forces and attack Ike before he gets taken out. However, to his horror, he is soon informed that Ike is out in the street looking for him. Jace goes out to meet with Ike and he puts on a nice act saying Ike should have let him know if he was going to stop by so suddenly. Ike says he just happened to be in the area so he wanted to pay Jace a visit alone. However, Jace pulled up with his entire squad, so Ike asked him if he's planning on starting a war or something. Jace tells Ike that this is his territory so Ike has no business here in the first place. He also mentions that Ike got injured a while ago so you must really be losing his edge as a commander if he let himself get struck by an arrow so easily. Ike agrees with him and says he was indeed careless back then, but he never expected to be betrayed by someone on his team, so there was no way he could have seen it coming. Since Ike knows Jace is the traitor, Jace stops acting nice and tells it that he was careless to come here alone since she's entire army who ripped him to pieces now. Ike is glad to hear that Jace brought his entire army to attack him since it means he can just blow them all up at once. Jace looks to the sky and he sees several giant meteors raining down upon them. This is the work of Sapphiro and her devastatingly destructive spell. She enjoys using it so much that she forgot to Ike to get out of the blast radius, although she's sure he will be fine. Meanwhile, down on the ground, Ike is totally not fine as he is forced to hide behind the building to avoid getting blown up. Ike asks Sapphiro to limit her attack power so that they could rebuild this section of the city afterwards, but she obviously has requested because this is way too much power. After the initial volume of explosions over, Sapphiro begins the second phase of their plan, as she orders her skeleton soldiers to be enslaved all the goblins that manage to survive. As Jace watches his men die, Ike teleports behind him and offers him a choice. He can either surrender now or he can surrender once everyone is dead, and after seeing what Ike is capable of, Jace still foolishly orders his men to kill Ike, and Ike is used wind spell that blow away the two attacking him from the front, but while he was doing that another goblin attempts to stab him in the back, but Ike prepared a shield to protect himself and he proceeds to take out the rest of the goblins with his magic. While this is going on, Jace is making a run for it since he never really cared about his soldiers to begin with. However, before he can make a clean getaway, he gets cut off by one of Sapphiro's monsters, so he's forced to use a smoke bomb to distract it and sneak away into the alleyway. He slinks away into a portal and appears out in the forest, so he's certain that he's successfully outsmarted Ike and Sapphiro, but as he's about to go down his secret pathway a fireball is shot him by Ike. Jace asks how Ike could have possibly found him since no one knows about the secret path except him, so Ike explained that he has been tracking Jace with one of his familiars this entire time. He then asked Jace to surrender immediately because there's no way Jace can win or escape. Rather than surrendering, Jace decides to attack Ike, but his punches are far too weak to get through Ike's shield spell, so Ike blows him back. Jace is then bound by magic vines and hang up so that he can escape, and this is where Jace finally admitted defeat. He can see where the Demon Lord holds Ike in such high regard, and he personally thinks Ike has a lot of talent, so he has a proposal for him. He wants Ike to join forces with him so that they can take over the Demon Lord's army and get things back to how they used to be. He complains that even though demons naturally drive joy subjugating and killing human, she's forbidden any of them from killing humans. Got a good reason for it. There are many demons who don't like her way of doing things, so Jace extends an invitation to Ike to help dethrone her since she isn't fit being Demon Lord. Ike obviously refuses, so Jace breaks one of his hands free and throws a knife at Ike, and Ike easily dodges it and feels insulted at Jace for his thought that would work on him. Ike's biggest questioning Jace, who else is plotting to overthrow the Demon Lord, but he refuses to reveal any information. Sapphiro soon shows up and she's prepared to torture Jace as much as necessary in order to get the info, but I pleaded with her to let him try to get it peacefully since he doesn't want to hurt anyone excessively. Sapphiro's complaint is that Ike's methods take too long, so she's going to have to take drastic measures here. Just then Jace begins to turn purple and cry out in pain, which is surprising since Sapphiro hasn't even done anything yet, so that can only mean Jace was poisoned by the other demons in his group to keep him to spilling their secrets. Ike tries using an antidote spell, but the poison is too strong, so Jace is going to die sooner or later. Before he dies, Sapphiro asked him if he still wants to protect identities of people who poison him without second thought, so Jace agrees to tell her who the leaders of the rebellion are so she can give revenge for him. Once they have this information, Sapphiro and Ike go to meet with Darokuden and inform her that there is a rebellion being led by the 3rd Division Commander Bastio, and since they are accusing Bastio of treason, Darokuden wants to hear what Bastio has to say for himself. The story continues. We see Bastio claims that both Sapphiro and Ike are simply trying to frame him, which is why they killed Jace to keep him quiet. He also claims Sapphiro is plotting to seal the third corpse away from him, but all these baseless accusations only serve to enrage Sapphiro. Darokuden tells Sapphiro calm down since she's going to handle this situation, after which she tells everyone that the more power a demon possesses, the more hungry for power they become. It is that ambition that makes demons who they are, so she can't in good conscience punishing demon for ambitiously seeking power. However, with all that said, she's not stupid. She is well aware that Bastio is lying through his teeth, so she wouldn't fall for his accusations, and she's also aware that Saphiro's still loyal to her. However, it's still Saphiro's fault that G's betrayed her, since she's meant to maintain her troops' loyalty. Saphiro accepts responsibility in that regard, so according to the demon's rule of law, Darokuten meant to eliminate both of them, yet she doesn't do that because it would be a waste to lose two core commanders at the same time. Instead, she decides that they will hold a duel and whoever wins will be allowed to live. A while later, Saphiro preparing herself for the duel, and the Demon Lord has just sent her the details of the duel, so she tells Ike that she will be fighting with puppets. As part of the rules, she's not allowed to participate in person, but neither is Bastio. They will both be put in charge of 50 puppets, and victory will be declared whenever one side is able to wipe out all of their enemies' puppets. That seems a little too complicated for a duel, since Darokuten could have easily just have them fight to the death, but Saphiro assumes the Demon Lord wants to test their skill as commanders, but that doesn't make it any less unusual. There's one more thing Saphiro forgot to mention. Darokuten made a provision for commanders to appoint a stand and to fight for them, so she's choosing Ike to fight in the duel of her life on the line. Ike asked her she's sure she doesn't want to handle this duel herself, but she says she is much more likely to win this way since the duel is a contest of skill between commanders, and she believes Ike's skill as a commander is far superior to hers. Although she's still a lot stronger than him, but for now she's entrusting her life to him. Ike doesn't like being forced to fight for Saphiro's survival, but he's got no choice now, so he's just going to have to do his best. Ike is just taking to see the puppets that he will be commanding, and according to what he has been told, these puppets all have equal amounts of strength, and they follow their commander's orders to the letter, so the only deciding factor in this duel will be the leadership abilities of the commanders. They are also allowed to equip the puppets with weapons as they see fit, but Ike doesn't think those sorts will be good enough to ensure his victory. A while later he's back in his office, trying to think of some good formations for the puppets, when Sati comes in and offers him a cup of tea. Since she's here, Ike asked Sati what she would do if she had to win fight, but Sati has no idea since she wouldn't want to fight in the first place. Ike agrees that settling disputes without fighting is the best way to go, but sometimes your opponent won't be satisfied unless this fight breaks out, so hypothetically, he wants to know what she would do in that situation. Sati doesn't have much fighting experience, but if she had to choose, then she would pick a broom as her weapon of choice. Ike said she's right, since the best weapon is one that allows you to stay out of striking range of your opponent while giving you the range to strike at them. Similarly, sword is better than a dagger, but a bow is even better since it allows you strike from afar, but of course Bastio would know that as well, so he would probably try to employ the same tactics. Sati mentions how Performer Master used to talk about crossbows being amazing in battles, and Ike thinks that might be a good idea since they can penetrate metal armor and are easier to use than bows. However, it's not going to work for him since he needs something even more powerful than crossbows. He would like to go Oppenheimer on them, but he doesn't have the materials for that, so he goes for the next best thing, guns. Sati has never heard of guns before, so she asked if they are strong, and Ike assures her that guns are incredibly strong. These blue sticks allow you to attack from hundreds of meters away without your opponent being able to fire back. Sati thinks that sounds amazing, but she asked if Ike is really capable of making something like that. He may not be able to make it alone, but he already thought of a plan for that. He says that Saphiro is an amazing alchemist, so if he's sure she'll be able to crank out some guns in no time. However, when he goes to ask her, Saphiro flat out tells him that she can't do it. She may be good at making things, but she can't make something that she has never seen before. Ike tried to explain that it's just an iron cylinder with gunpowder to launch a bullet, but Saphiro ignores him and starts asking Ike to join her first swim. Meanwhile, Bastio has just been informed that Ike will be taking Saphiro's place as commander, and while his underling assumes that Saphiro must be afraid of him or something, Bastio knows that Saphiro must have some kind of plan in mind, although he doesn't know what that is, but for now, he lets his underling know that he's really impressed with the sword that was made. The underling tells him that it was crafting using a dragon's tooth, and he can have enough men to equip all his soldiers with one, but Bastio says he will need a lot more than just 50 swords for what he has planned. Meanwhile, Ike has just gotten out of the pool with Saphiro, and he can't believe how relaxed she's when failure on his part would made her death. Just then someone sends Ike code floating over to him, so he thinks the person However, a moment later, he's shocked to find out that the person is Darokuten. This really bad for since he's not wearing his mask, but he thinks he can bluff his way out of trouble since Darokuten may not recognize him. She drops a bag on the ground and tells Ike to open it, so Ike does so as astonished when he sees a bunch of boomsticks. She's knew Ike is trying to get his hands on some, so she went through the trouble of getting it for him. Ike tried to deny it since he doesn't want her to know who he really is, but Darokuten tells him that there's no point in lying about it since she already knew he was human. Romberg had told her all about Ike, so she knew from the very beginning that Ike was human, but if she knew from the starts, then Ike asked why she didn't eliminate him immediately. She says we let him live for the sake of her wish since no matter how much power she possesses she won't be able to achieve her goal without having people by her side to fight for her. Ike asked her what her wish is, so the Demon Lord explains that she wants to build a peaceful world she desires, and to do that she needs as many skilled people as possible, so she wants Ike to help her achieve her goal. Ike says he's happy to serve her and Darokuten pleased, so she teleports away. After that, Ike takes the guns to Sapphiro so she can see what they look like, and she finally understands what guns are, so she asks Ike how she's meant to make bullets. Ike says it's a metal ball, so Sapphiro conjures one of, however it's way too big to be used as a bullet. Ike tells her it needs to be small enough to fit inside the gun barrel, so Sapphiro understands what she needs to do, although she doesn't like it because making small things gives her terrible acting. Just then, a huge explosion occurs, but Sapphiro didn't see any magic, so Ike explains that it was probably caused by the gunpowder in development. Fiorentina comes out and tells Ike that she's made the powder he asked for, so Ike asks Sapphiro if she's done with the bullets and the ones she made this time are perfect, so he wants her to make around 500 more of them. Sapphiro agrees to get into the bullets, although she offloads all the work onto Fiorentina since she doesn't want to do it. Ike apologizes to Fiorentina since he's going to need her to make the gunpowder and bullets, since Sapphiro doesn't want to help, but she says she's already used to it because Sapphiro never wants to do her job. On the day of the duel, the stadium is full of demons eagerly waiting to see some action, and Bastio begins mocking Ike for only outfitting his puppets with shields when his puppets are completely decked out with armor. He asked Ike what Sapphiro was doing right now and whether she's planning something, but in any case it doesn't matter to him since he will be winning no matter what. His puppet are covered heads to toe into Damascus steel, meaning no sword or arrow attacks will be able to penetrate them. It was a gift to him from Darokuten, so he believes he must be taking side in this duel. Ike does know what Darokuten was thinking to give both of them equipment like this. Maybe he wanted to be an equal fight, or maybe it's some kind of test, but regardless of what her intentions were, he can always ask her after he has won. The match officially begins and the rules are announced once more. Each commander has 50 puppets, and whoever is able to destroy all the enemy puppets first will be declared the winner, while the loser will die. With that out of the way, the signal is given for the duel to begin, and Bastio immediately orders his archer puppets to fire Ike's puppets. Ike orders his puppets to block with their shields, and while some of the arrows are blocked, a few of Ike's puppets end up getting shot anyway. After this, Bastio orders his other puppets to be in their assault, so they run forward and begin laying waste Ike's troops, while Bastio is laughing the whole time because Ike is doing nothing but defending. After a while, a large number of Ike's puppets have been killed, but Darokuten knows it's not over yet, and in the next moment a loud boom echoes through the arena, as Ike's remaining puppets begin firing guns, and now that Ike just begun his counterattack, it's not long before his puppets begin mowing down Bastio's puppets with ease, and Bastio has no idea what's going on or why he is losing. Before long, all of Bastio's puppets fall to the ground dead and Bastio has officially lost the battle, so the Demon Lord comes down from her seat to deliver the bad news to him. She's prepared two choices for him since she is so nice, so she tells Bastio he can either end himself or she will do it for him, and she won't make it painless. However, Bastio says he has something else in mind in case he ended up losing, so in the next moment, Bastio has an archer shooting arrow at Darokuten back. However, unlike Ike who's able to see it coming and caught the arrow before it hit her, but something she didn't see coming was the fact that there was a high-power explosive attached to the arrow, and as a result she gets blown up. Bastio then sets off another series of explosions in the stands, killing a bunch of spectators and allowing his undead soldiers to enter the arena, and he now declares that he will be the new Demon Lord from now on. The story continues. We see Bastio's skeletons begin attacking all the ogres in the stadium, and the ogres must have forgotten how to fight, because they are just running around and letting themselves get slaughtered one by one. Bastio laughs and orders his troops to kill all who try to resist, for he is the new ruler of this kingdom. In the middle of his angry speech, Bastio turns to Ike, tells him that inevitably the demon army will fall in line and respect him as the new demon lord, so he offers Ike chance to join his side without a fight since he acknowledges Ike's abilities. He even offers to let Ike have full command over the 7th Corps as a bonus, and Ike tells Bastio that his offer is certainly appealing. But it's not something Bastio is in a position to promise since he will never be able to become demon lord. Bastio laughs in Ike's face for being foolish enough to decline such an offer, or he is surrounded by an entire army ready to attack at any moment. But even as he is surrounded by Bastio's army and has a couple skeletons coming after him, Ike remains calm and casts a massive wind spell to take out the skeletons attacking from the front. Bastio orders his remaining soldiers to eliminate Ike, but as they charge to him, Ike prepares his series of dark spears which he uses to impale them all as they approach. Since they can't get close, one skeleton decides to go all and ignite its head to be used as a weapon, but it went through all the trouble of sacrificing its head and so misses the shot entirely. A couple seconds later it gets absolutely vaporized by Ike's magic. Even though his firepower is sufficient to hold the army back, Ike still doesn't want to get completely surrounded, so he uses magic to fly into the air and escape while hundreds of arrows are shot at him, and once he has finally gotten to a good position, he begins casting a huge attack spell which takes out a large portion of Bastio's army in an instant. After that, Ike begins flying straight at Bastio, and upon getting close enough, he grabs Bastio's face and sets off a point-blank explosion in an attempt to finish him off for good. By the time the dust settles, Ike is the only one left standing, so he assumes he has won. A lot of demons did end up dying at the hands of Bastio. However, it looks like it's not over yet. Ike sees Bastio's head rolls in front of him, and at the same time Bastio's body sneaks up from behind to attack. Several explosions occur which shake the stadium's foundation, but Ike managed to avoid it by jumping back to create some separation between Bastio and himself. But despite all this hard work, Bastio tells him that it's all pointless since there's no way he can win as the leader of the Undying Brigade. Ike must know better than anyone that soldiers like these are almost impossible to kill permanently, so all the soldiers that Ike kept previously slain are going to slowly recover and continue fighting. Bastio as well as his subordinates are all undead, mean nothing Ike does will be enough to earn him a victory since they'll just keep coming back. The undead soldiers begin attacking Ike again with their exploding skull strike, but they still have terrible aim with it. Even if they didn't manage to hit, and it still got Ike attention, so while he was distracted, this soldier sneaks up on him and tries to take Ike out, but Ike sees it coming and freezes the soldier's arm solid before shattering it to pieces. After that, Ike uses time magic to slow down the rest of the advancing soldiers, and while they are all frozen in place, he proceeds to knock each and every one of them out with his staff. However, even the power of Zoe World isn't enough to stop Bastio's army as they just keep getting back up. His army is basically infinite with their constant regeneration, and no matter how much power Ike possesses, he still has a finite amount of magic, so eventually he will run out of steam and succumb to the relentless attacks of the undead army. He says it's a shame that Ike has to die this way since if he had agreed to work under him, then Bastio could have put his talents to good use. Just then the archer, who has been in sniping position this entire time, takes aim and shoots an explosive arrow straight at Ike's back. However, Ike is more aware of his surroundings after the last back shot he receives, so even as the arrow strikes and creates a massive explosion, Ike managed to block it with a magic shield, although it left his shield cracked and Ike exhausted. Bastio is surprised that Ike is still alive after taking such a hit, but it makes sense since he was still enough to become the commander of the 7th Brigade. However, regardless of how much Ike struggles to keep going, it won't save him in this situation, so he will eventually be killed at Bastio's hands. Ike realizes Bastio is right, and all the attacks spells his cast up to this point have wasted a lot of his magic, so he needs to come up with a new plan soon, otherwise he doesn't stand a chance. He knows the undead or walking corpses, so darkness magic won't work on them, but as he thinks about it, he thinks that the plan of attack that is guaranteed to work against corpses. So as the undead soldiers run in to continue their attack, Ike casts holy magic and exorcises them all. Bastio is shocked that Ike was actually able to destroy his soldiers, but he still has another way of attacking Ike, so he uses the signal for the snipers to take another shot. However, before this sniper can fire, his arm is chopped off by Sapphiro. She apologizes for keeping Ike waiting so long, but she's finally here and she brought back up. On the ground, the rest of the 7th Corps are all engaged in combat with the undead army, and they are making short work of them. Meanwhile, inside, Sapphiro flies down to Ike to inform him that the others are taking care of the undead soldiers outside, and as soon as Bastio notices Sapphiro, he starts getting ready to attack her, but before he does, he hears a voice from behind him saying Ike is his opponent, so he should ignore Sapphiro. Bastio turns around, and to his horror he sees Darokuten looking down at him. She has every right to obliterate in this instant, and she probably should, but she tells Bastio that she will give him one last chance to survive as long as he manages to win a duel to the death with Ike. Keep in mind this is the second chance she's given Bastio despite knowing he was a traitor from the beginning, but since she's the boss, Ike has no choice but to step up and fight Bastio alone, but two charge at each other, and as Bastio attacks with his sword, Ike blocked it with his shield magic, but Bastio feels insulted that Ike actually believes he can win, so he was all out with his sword and strikes Ike's shield again, this time causing a crack to form Ike's defenses. Bastio tells Ike that he's a weakling compared to him, so there was no doubt in his mind that Ike will lose this duel. He continues attacking while telling Ike his time is up, and even when Ike tries to jump back to create some distance, Bastio doesn't give him many times to rest as he uses his head to fire a dark laser at Ike, but as Ike notices this he fires back at Bastio with the spell of his own, one which uses white magic. The white magic overwhelms Bastio, and after making contact with him it causes Bastio's arm to decay. Sapphiro had no idea Ike could use white magic, and she's left wondering where and when Ike could have learned it, but after seeing the Demon Lord's nonchalant face, it is clear that Darokuten already knew Ike possessed such magic. Bastio refuses to give up and charges at Ike once again, but the entire time, Ike is just having a flashback to time in his youth, when he was still studying magic under Romberg. At that time, he seemed oddly interested in a flower that had wilted away, but since it was time for his daily magic lessons, he left it alone for the time being and went instead with Romberg to study. Ike learned a lot of interesting spells, but by the time they were done, he was curious to know where there was magic that could bring a wilted flower back to life, and Romberg immediately answers that white magic would be able to do it, so Ike asks to learn that next. However, Romberg reminds Ike that he's supposed to be pretending to be a demon, and white magic is almost impossible for demons to learn. This is because it draws power from a compassionate heart, and demons are born to be haters, so they naturally lack an affinity for it. With that said, Ike is human, so we should be able to learn it, but Longer wants to make it clear that white magic is the most terrifying weapon that can be wielded against a demon, so Unifact was to learn it. He has to be careful about how he uses it. Ike agreed to be careful, so Romberg taught it to him. Back to the present, Ike tells Bastio that his ambition to become Demon Lord is too much for someone like him. He has no problem sacrificing his men, and he was willing to backstab his master just to attain power, so while that may be how a demon would normally act, Ike won't stand for such atrocities. Demon or not, or ruler oppressing their subjects is wrong. Bastio tells Ike to shut up since he doesn't know what he's talking about, but Ike tells him to be quiet instead because these are going to be his final moments of life. Bastio tries to attack him again, so Ike charges up his white magic, and with one swift motion, he slashes Bastio's stomach and kills him for good. With Bastio finally defeated, Sapphiro walks up to Ike and says she's glad everything ended up working out in the end. Ike realizes that Sapphiro must have known Bastio was planning something, which is why she asked it to handle the duel, while she prepared backed up for the inevitable coup attempt. Sapphiro doesn't see a problem since everyone survived in the end, give or take a couple 100 civilian demons, but they weren't important anyway. However, Darokuten approaches them and says there's still a huge problem left to be resolved, since now that Bastio is dead the Third Corps no longer has a leader, so she's giving Ike the job, and before he has the chance to say anything, she teleports away. After that, everyone on Ike's team comes over to congratulate him on his victory, but Sapphiro seems upset about something. A little while later, Sapphiro goes to see Darokuten at her castle, and she angrily says that Ike serves under her, so she should be the one to decide where he goes. Darokuten is surprised that Sapphiro is so upset about this, since she thought she would be happy for Ike to get promotion, but in any case, Sapphiro serves under Darokuten, so she has the right to give Ike whatever position she wants, although she thinks it would be best to hear what he has to say for himself since he's here anyway. Sapphiro notices Ike walking up from behind her, and since he came here, Darokuten assumes he must have decided if he wants to accept the promotion or not. Ike starts by saying that the people in this town are finally getting used to their new lives. At first, his men didn't like living with humans, but over time they've learned to adapt to the new lifestyle, and so have the humans. They live in relative peace and help each other without prejudice, and that is a huge step towards Ike's ultimate goal. He explains that when he joined the demon army, he hoped to create a world where demons and humans can peacefully coexist with one another, and his goal hasn't changed. He removes his mask as a sign of sincerity and apologizes to Darokuten since he is going to have to reject the promotion. He still has a lot he wants to learn from Sapphiro, but he promises that he will make Avelias the first city where humans and demons coexist. That brings the episode to an end. Thanks for watching. Want next part? Subscribe the channel and turn on notification bell.